There's something Wakili has repeated, Raila making some very grave mistakes.
Right.
One of them is pointing out is missing the presidential debate.
Right.
Not too sure whether at that point it could have swayed a number of votes. We're not too sure. Maybe it did. But looking at the life after this announcement yesterday of Raila Odinga, trying it the 5th time, missing it.
Yes.
Do you agree with what Wakili is saying? He made some grave mistakes getting into this election, and then what happens to Raila, whether he goes to the Supreme Court or not?
Yeah, I think this is very interesting, Dennis, and I would like to look at it a little bit differently. We have a society that celebrates winners regardless of how they win, and we have a society that punishes losers regardless of how they lose. and that is, you know, even in school, there are people who have been cheating in exams. And when they get first class, we celebrate them. And the people who are working very, very hard, you know, when they fail to get in there, you know, we are there saying, you're lazy. You know, you didn't do your homework. And they did. They did, but they still failed. My point is that whether we like it or not, people, the analysts, the armchair critic, will actually be pointing out how Ruto did it well and how he succeeded. And whether we like that or not, that's how our society is organized. And for the loser, we'll be pointing out how Raila missed it, how he did all sorts of things. That is how our society is organized, and that is very unfortunate. One of the things that I've said over and over again, we are very bad at managing the so-called failure, or even perception of failure. I was privileged to have been part of the last great President Obama's campaigns. And I was in the US, in Atlanta, Georgia, and in Washington, D.C. I remember that president, you know, telling his base and voters in terms of build-up to the election. He was preparing them for failure. He told them that this election, we are most likely going to lose it. He wasn't even saying it was too close, because he said it'll go to the wire. We'll struggle until the last day. But he kept sending this message to his base that we can actually lose this election. Of course, he achieved the exact opposite, that his base turned out in huge numbers, the invisible voters appeared, and Obama carried the day. But if Obama had lost, his base was actually ready for that loss, because he had prepared them over and over again that this is actually a possible outcome in an election. What do we do? Here, even you know, candidates who are getting 1% or 0% are telling their base that they're going to win. They're not preparing the base for any possibility of a contrary result. And I think this is something that we need to build as a culture. In fact, for me, it's not a failure. I teach at the university. Some of the most devastated students are the students who have been told by their supervisors that they're going to get a first class. And then they end up with an upper second. They commit suicide. But the students who expected to fail and they get a pass are celebrating, and people come with matatus that, you know, this guy has a degree and so on and so forth. And it is actually about management of failure. It is about, you know, developing a narrative outside there, telling lies that you eventually start believing yourself, while you know that they're actually lies. So I think my own advice to the political class is very simple. That, look here, when you get outside there, be ready for all the outcomes. You know, prepare yourself for all the outcomes. That's what great leadership calls of you and your people. Manage your people and so on, so that when the result is not exactly what you expect, then that result will be acceptable. I can tell you, I personally have prepared my family, and I can say that on air, for the outcome. We were on one side, but my children actually knew and expected a contrary result should that be the case. And I don't feel devastated. And this has happened to me in the past. In the past, we were celebrating and we're saying, look here, we're going to win. And when we didn't win, this just didn't affect me as the father in that family. It affected my entire family. It's like we literally needed to go for counseling. We need to get into this space where we are able to manage failure also, perceived or real.
Prof is talking about managing failure, Caroline.
Yes.
Raila Odinga made a very daring pledge in his last rally and said that he's willing to accept and ready to accept the outcome of the election. But the key word he used is fairly.
Fairly, yes. There was a caveat. So,
but he also said his vote cannot be stolen.
So yes, and as Prof is saying, he also said his votes cannot be stolen. At some point in the week, we saw elected leaders being summoned to KICC, and I remember very well Martha Karua stating, and I quote, "There is no way the count can be against us." You remember she said that. Going back to the question about, you know, too close yet too far and things of that nature, I remember tweeting and asking and saying, it's very clear on the Kenya Kwanza side, there is robust attempt to listen to intellectuals, to listen to experts, and there are, you know, there are intellectuals, experts of different fields advising the Kenya Kwanza, you know, alliance. And I remember asking, who is doing that on the Azimio side? And I remember being dismissed and being told, don't worry, we have the people from NAC. And I said NAC was 2002. That's 20 years ago. I mean, how are we reconciling that the problems of 2022 and 2002 are different? Who are these people? And I was told, don't worry, you'll see them when we win, you'll see them. Which goes back to the point that Prof was making. And for me, my main questions are about what happens going forward, even beyond the so-called inacceptance of results and or going to the Supreme Court to lodge an appeal there. For me, I feel as though some of these parties are stuck in the old model from 2002, from 2007, where for me to access the party, I pay money for fundraising or to the party leader or things, you know, it's this subscription. And I think some of these parties are now caught in the past. We have a new batch of voters. We have a new batch of citizens. Some of them, a large number of them, if we were to look at the statistics, and if the IEBC is to begin to co-opt these people into the voters register as early as next year, if the incoming government allows the IEBC to be independent and gives them the corresponding budgets, we are going to see a new electorate that is not stuck in the old models. How are these parties thinking of co-opting people, co-opting intellectuals, co-opting women, co-opting young people into their ranks, co-opting people who are even in the margins, people with disabilities? If I don't have $1 million shillings to give you as the party leader, does it mean that I will never, as an individual, I will never, as you know, as a constituent, have access to the party structures to help me to win? This is where I think this is a crossroads, an intellectual it's an intellectual crossroads for many of these parties. And if they don't heed this advice, many of them are going to die. The days of having, you know, all these party stalwarts who are just screaming and shouting and causing chaos, those days are over. We need parties where we can see people engaging intellectually at all levels. And I think that is one of the things that Azimio la Umoja failed. On the Kenya Kwanza side, we had the most visible intellectual, that is Ndi, talking about bottoms-up approach, talking about the economy. We did not see that kind of robust engagement from the Azimio side. All we saw were, you know, all these party stalwarts, you know, just making all these, you know, all these pronouncements. So that's one thing. Going forward, how do these parties strengthen themselves? Even as opposition, we were talking about the opposition issue. Where are the shadow cabinet secretaries? We need to see them. We need to see strong whips. We need to see strong caucuses. We need to see there is work to be done. And work to be done is not about sitting and waiting for the person with the biggest wallet to pay me. You know, we were hearing all these stories about money changing hands in the toilets. I mean, this is repugnant if I'm to use that. It is repugnant and disgusting. We need people who are serious. Everybody is telling me you're being too optimistic, you know, these politicians. I feel we also need to start taking the Constitution seriously. If our leaders who have been elected are not working, there is cause to recall them. We recall them, we get rid of them, we get people who actually are going in there to do a semblance of work.